The Glass Award. A steel beam swung inches from Leo's face as his sister smiled from across the construction platform, her finger hovering over a remote control. 10 floors below, the city lights flickered like dying stars. He had nowhere to run, and Elena had finally stopped pretending to help him. 13 hours earlier, Leo stood before a floor-to-ceiling mirror in his studio apartment, adjusting the lapels of his navy blazer with trembling fingers. Soft jazz drifted from the Bose speaker, Coltrane, his favorite, as dust motes danced through the golden evening light. The gallery opening was in 2 hours. His centerpiece would be unveiled. Critics would attend. This was the moment that mattered. He turned from the mirror and walked to his mahogany desk, where the heavy glass trophy sat waiting. The engraving caught the light. Emerging Artist of the Year, Leo Vance. He picked it up, running a microfiber cloth over its surface with meticulous care. Each small circular motion made the cloth squeak softly against the glass. This award meant validation. This award meant his work had been seen, had been chosen, had mattered to someone beyond his sister's judgment. The door buzzer sounded, but Elena didn't wait for an answer. She never did. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she entered without knocking, letting the door swing shut behind her. She wore a sharp red trench coat, her keys jangling in her hand as she dropped them directly onto his stack of charcoal sketches on the hall table. The gesture was small, deliberate. The way she stepped over his work, the way the metal keys scattered his drawings. This was Elena's language. This was how she communicated. She walked to the award immediately, picking it up with one hand as if it weighed nothing. Through the glass, her reflection distorted, her face magnified and twisted. She poked at a small smudge he had missed that morning, her rings sinking against the trophy. "It's nice, Leo," she said, setting it down near the edge of the desk. She tilted her head at his main canvas, the sprawling abstract piece in blues and golds that had taken him 3 months to complete. Very accessible. I'm sure the local hobbyists will love it. Leo's smile faltered. He reached for the trophy, moving it back to the center of the desk, away from the edge. His jaw tightened. Elena leaned over the canvas, her long red fingernail hovering centimeters from the wet paint. "Don't be so precious," she said, laughing, a sharp, staccato sound that cut through the jazz music. "I'm just surprised they chose this for the gala. It's so different from your usual commercial stuff." Leo stepped between his sister and the painting, taking her coat from her shoulders and forcing her to move away. She laughed again, checking her gold Cartier watch with a sigh. "You have a show to go to," she said. "Try not to embarrass yourself." Leo looked at his painting, then back at Elena. The pride in his eyes flickered, replaced by something smaller and more fragile. The gallery was crowded. Leo moved through it like a ghost, holding a champagne flute, watching as patrons admired the walls. The centerpiece was still covered by a velvet drape. He had orchestrated this moment 100 times in his mind. The slow reveal, the gasps, the recognition. When he pulled the cord, the drape fell away. The canvas was covered in crude black spray-painted X marks, slashed across his blue and gold artwork like wounds. The crowd gasped. Leo's champagne glass dropped to the marble floor and shattered, a sound like a gunshot. A man in a dark gray hoodie stood near the exit, holding a spray can, videoing the scene with his phone. When he saw Leo's face, he smirked. Leo dropped everything and sprinted toward him. They collided near a metal sculpture and both crashed to the floor. Leo grabbed the man's collar, his knuckles white with rage, but the man kicked him hard in the stomach. Leo doubled over, winded and gasping. The man scrambled up, dropped the spray can, and ran out through the glass doors into the night. Leo rolled onto his side, coughing. He reached for the discarded spray can. It had a high-end label, Lux Restore Professional Black, the kind used by professional restorationists, not street vandals. When Leo looked up, Elena was standing in the crowd. She wasn't rushing to help him. She was recording the destruction with her phone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow, completely unmoved. Their eyes met across the wreckage of his painting. Elena gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shrug and kept recording. Leo's hand closed around a shard of glass from his drink. Blood dripped onto the white marble. How was he buying jewelry? He walked over to the vandalized painting, noticing that a corner of the X was peeling. When he touched it, the black paint lifted away easily. It wasn't spray paint at all. It was thin, adhesive plastic tape, designed to look permanent while preserving the art underneath. As he peeled back a large section, the vibrant blue and gold paint emerged, untouched. The destruction had been staged. A small note was tucked into the frame, written on Elena's stationery in her elegant, loopy handwriting. The world only pays attention to a tragedy. Now you're the lead story. Leo picked up his phone and saw his own face on the front page of a major art blog. Headline: Vandal attacks rising star. Vance masterpiece ruined. The blog post had already been shared 50,000 times. He had become news. He crushed the note in his fist. Elena hadn't just sabotaged him. She had manipulated his father's ghost to help him, all while orchestrating a destruction designed to make him legendary. The crumpled note stained red where his blood-soaked bandage touched it. Leo burst through the glass doors of Elena's penthouse the next morning. His sister sat by a wall-to-ceiling window, sipping green juice in a white silk robe, her face perfectly composed. "You used Dad's accounts," Leo said, throwing the crushed note onto the marble kitchen island. "You hired that man. You turned my opening into a freak show." Elena laughed, a light sound without any anxiety in it. She walked comfortably around the island, her steps silent on the carpet, and touched the note with one finger. "I gave you a career, Leo," she said. "Look at your sales this morning. You're sold out. Every piece." Leo lunged at her, grabbing her by the shoulders and shaking her violently. Her glass of juice fell, shattering and staining her white robe green. Elena fought back with the precision of someone trained to fight. Her nails scratched his face, her thumb jammed into his wounded palm. He pushed her onto the designer's sofa and stood over her, breathing hard. Elena reached into the cushions and pulled out pepper spray. When Leo lunged again, they tumbled to the floor among the shards. He pinned her wrists down, much stronger than she was, but tears streamed down his face. "I didn't want a career," he said, his voice breaking. "I wanted one night where I wasn't your project." Elena stopped struggling. She looked up at him, cold and empty, and said nothing. Her eyes were like flint. The next morning, Leo visited a high-security storage facility. A tall man in a gray suit led him past steel lockers to a heavy vault door. Inside were hundreds of canvases, wrapped in brown paper and blue tape, reaching toward the ceiling. Leo tore the paper off the nearest painting. It was The Blue Horizon, his very first sold piece from 3 years ago. He thought it was in a private collection in London. He tore the paper off 5 more paintings. All were his. Every major sale of his career was sitting in this windowless room, gathering dust. The vault manager held out a clipboard. At the top of the owner list, Elena Vance, V Media Holdings. Leo realized that the physical sabotage at the gallery had been small compared to this. His sister owned him. She had bought every piece of art he thought had been chosen by the world. He hadn't sold a single work to a real collector. A digital thermometer on the wall began to rise. 75, 76, 77 degrees. The climate control was failing. When Leo looked at the manager, the man was already backing toward the door, his face guilty, not looking at Leo. Leo sprinted for the exit, but the heavy vault door swung shut. He was inside total darkness. The buzzing sound became a roar. Smoke began to smell of burning wiring. Leo used his phone's flashlight to scan the room, then grabbed a metal easel and slammed it against the keypad. Sparks flew, but the door didn't open. An intercom crackled to life. "I can't let you tell them, Leo," Elena's voice said, distorted by static. "They need to believe you're a genius. If you're a martyr, the value triples instantly." Leo screamed at the speaker, grabbed a heavy glass sculpture and hurled it. The intercom shattered and died. He worked frantically, using a palette knife to unscrew the hot vent cover. The metal burned his fingertips. He pulled it off and wedged himself into the narrow shaft, crawling over sharp metal edges. Ahead, he saw light through spinning fan blades. He jammed one of the easel legs into the fan, which screeched to a stop, showering sparks. Leo kicked the fan unit out and fell hard into a service hallway, landing on concrete with a dull thud. He was out, bleeding and singed, but alive. Leo stumbled out of the service exit into the bright afternoon daylight. He collapsed against a brick wall. A white ambulance with no markings pulled up immediately. Two men in blue jumpsuits jumped out with military precision and loaded Leo onto a gurney with thick nylon belts. Through his fog of pain and exhaustion, Leo didn't resist. The ambulance doors closed and they began to drive. Inside, one of the men leaned over Leo with a syringe filled with clear liquid. Leo's eyes snapped open. He saw a tattoo on the man's wrist, the same Lux Restore company logo from the spray can. These weren't medics at all. Leo fought against the straps and bit the hand holding the syringe. The man yelled, and the needle fell. The driver reached back and hit Leo with a heavy flashlight. Leo's world spun red and black, but survival instinct kicked in. He unhooked one buckle and kicked the medic in the chest, sending him flying into the back doors. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it directly into the driver's face through the cabin window. The ambulance swerved and crashed into a row of parked bikes. Leo unbuckled the rest of the straps, rolled out the back doors, and tumbled into an alley as the vehicle came to a stop. Leo limped into the dark, oak-paneled library of the Vance estate. His clothes were torn and black with soot. He headed straight for the safe hidden behind a portrait of their father. He spun the dial, 12:05:85, his father's birthday, and the safe clicked open. Inside, there was nothing but a single iPad. Its screen displayed all of Leo's bank accounts in real time. As he watched, $2.4 million was transferred into an account titled the Leopold Vance Legacy Trust. Leo scrolled down the trust terms. The condition read, "Funds only accessible upon the death or permanent incapacitation of Leopold Vance." He found a video file labeled, "Open Me." When he clicked it, his father's face appeared on screen. The old man looked pale and sickly, defeated. He was signing a document. "Elena, you're the only one who can handle the business," their father's recorded voice said. "Leo is a dreamer. Control him or he'll destroy himself." Leo dropped the iPad. It hit the floor, the screen cracking, his father's face distorted by the jagged lines. He realized his entire life had been a play directed by his sister, with their father's blessing. He had no money, no identity, and no family left. Leo looked at his hands, stained with blood, soot, and green juice. He looked at a trophy on the shelf, Elena's old debate award. He picked it up and felt its weight in his palm. Leo stood on the 50th floor of an unfinished skyscraper. The wind howled through the open steel girders. Below, the city lights looked like dying stars. He held a thick manila envelope. Elena stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, wearing a hard hat over her designer suit. Two large men stood behind her. Leo held up the envelope and pulled out a photograph. It showed the V-Media offshore tax records. "I'm not a martyr, Elena," he said. "I'm a liability. This is already in 3 reporters' inboxes." Elena didn't look panicked. She pulled out a remote control with a single red button. She pointed it at the building's crane. A massive steel beam began to swing slowly toward the platform where Leo stood. There was nowhere to run. The only way was down. Elena stepped closer, the wind whipping her hair. "Reporters don't listen to dead men," she shouted over the machinery. "And the records? All fake. I planted them for you to find." Leo looked at the envelope. The numbers didn't add up. She wanted him here. She wanted him to lead her to this evidence so she could destroy it and him together. He looked at the 2 men. They stepped forward, blocking the stairs. He was backed up against the safety netting at the edge of the building, his heels hanging over the abyss. Elena pressed the button. The beam accelerated. Leo closed his eyes as the cold steel loomed centimeters from his face. Quiet. The beam stopped an inch from his nose. Leo opened his eyes. He was at the lowest point of his life, certain he was about to die. But Leo wasn't at the construction site at all. He was in a basement studio, looking at a series of large-scale photographs of the confrontation. He had set up hidden cameras weeks earlier. The video showed Elena holding the remote, smiling as the beam swung toward him. The video showed the exact moment she expected him to break. Leo picked up a brush. He wasn't painting on canvas. He was painting on the photographs, highlighting the Lux Restore logo on the men's uniforms with glowing UV paint. Under black light, the logo glowed neon blue. He packed a trunk with his remaining supplies. Inside the lid was a false bottom that clicked open to reveal the real bank records, stolen from Elena's desk during their fight. He uploaded a digital file to the gallery's main projection system. The title was The Vance Retrospective, a Performance. On the television, he watched Elena at a press conference, crying crocodile tears, claiming her brother was missing and feared dead. She had already offered a $1 million reward for his return. Leo put on a simple black hoodie, exactly like the one the vandal had worn. He picked up a spray can and shook it, listening to the marble rattle inside. He walked toward the exit. On the wall, he had painted a mural of Elena as a puppet master, her strings made of money. It was the best art he had ever produced. He stepped out into the rain and was no longer the victim. He was the curator of his own story. Leo checked his watch. 8:00 p.m. The time of the gala honoring his memory. He adjusted his hood and threw a brick through the window of a V-Media building. An alarm screamed. He stood there, waiting for the cameras to catch his face. Elena stood on a podium in the center of the gallery, wearing deep black lace. She held a white lily. The slideshow behind her showed Leo as a child. She wiped a fake tear. "My brother was a troubled genius," she said into the microphone. "This exhibition will now fund his legacy." The screen glitched. The acoustic music stopped. The lights dimmed to pitch black. A heartbeat sound pulsed through the speakers. The projector flickered to life, and the screen exploded with video. It showed Elena at the construction site, holding the remote, smiling as the beam swung toward Leo. The crowd gasped. Elena turned, her face going white. She dropped the lily and tried to find the remote to turn off the projector, but it wasn't in her clutch. The screen changed. It showed the bank transfers, the offshore accounts, and finally, the video of their father saying Elena was the only one who can handle the business. Leo walked through the center aisle, the crowd parting like waves. He was dressed in his best blazer, looking clean and powerful. He handed the sapphire bracelet, the one he had stolen back from the vault, to Elena as he passed her. He didn't look at her. Leo stepped onto the podium and touched the microphone. He looked directly into the camera of a reporter in the front row. "This isn't a memorial," he said. "It's an opening, and the first thing for sale is my sister's reputation." Elena fell to her knees as the flashing lights of police cruisers reflected through the gallery windows. The sirens grew louder. She had nothing left. 1 month later, Leo was in the center of the vast, empty library of the estate. The furniture was gone, replaced by huge blank canvases. Birds sang in the garden. Warm sunlight filled the room. He poured a bucket of vibrant green paint into a tray, the exact shade of the juice that had once stained his pride. He smiled. He picked up a letter from the desk. It was from a prison. He didn't open it. He dropped it into an ashtray and set it on fire, watching as the word Elena on the return address burned away. He checked his phone. A notification appeared. Deposit from MoMA, 500,000. It was for the painting of the puppet master, the art he had created not for approval or fear, but for truth. Leo picked up a large, heavy brush and made one bold stroke of green across the center of a 10-foot canvas. It was perfect. He stood back, looking at the stroke. He wasn't looking for flaws or for Elena's approval. He just breathed. A young assistant entered with the mail. At the top was a magazine. The cover showed Leo with the headline, "The Vance Legacy, Reclaimed." Leo looked at his shelf. He had placed the glass award there, but it was no longer the center of the room. It sat next to a photo of his father as a young man, smiling before the business took his soul. The award caught the light like a prism. Leo dipped his hands directly into the paint. He wasn't using tools anymore. He pressed his green palm against the wall, leaving a mark. The print spread across the white plaster like a vow. He turned back to the window. The city was waking up. For the first time, Leopold Vance knew exactly who he was, and the world couldn't take it from him. He picked up his brush again and returned to the canvas, the morning sun warming his shoulders as he worked.